sweet, chill air lifted the drizzle and half playfully swept the queue from end to end with it in one long brushstroke. That discouraged no one. Even the weather could not take itself seriously tonight. It had merely sufficient tang to provide a suitable aperitif to the fare in front of them. The queue twiddled its toes, and Cockney-wise made the most of whatever entertainment provided itself in the dark canyon of the lane. First there had come the newsboys, small things with thin, impassive faces and wary eyes. They had flickered down the queue like wildfire and disappeared, leaving behind a trail of chatter and fluttering papers. Then a man with legs shorter than his body laid a ragged strip of carpet on the damp pavement and proceeded to tie himself into knots until he looked as a spider does when it is taken unawares, his mournful toad's eyes gleaming now and then from totally unexpected places in the writhing mass, so that even the most indifferent spectator felt his spine trickle. He was succeeded by a man who played popular airs on the fiddle, happily oblivious of the fact that his E-string was half a tone flat. Then, simultaneously, came a singer of sentimental ballads and a syncopated orchestra of 3. After they had scowled at each other for a moment or two, the soloist tried to rush things on the possession being 9 points principle by breaking into a wailing "Because you came to me," but the leader of the orchestra, handing his guitar to a lieutenant, proceeded to interview the tenor with his elbows out and his hands lifted. The tenor tried to ignore him by looking over his head, but found it difficult because the musician was half a head taller than himself and appeared to be ubiquitous. He persevered for another 2 lines, and then the ballad wavered uncertainly into bitter expostulation in his natural voice, and 2 minutes later he faded up the dark alley, mumbling threats and complaints, and the orchestra broke into the latest dance tune. This being more to the taste of the moderns than inappropriate resurrection of decayed sentiment, they promptly forgot all about the poor victim of force majeure and twiddled their toes in time to the lively measure. After the orchestra, and severally, came a conjurer, an evangelist, and a man who allowed himself to be tied up in a rope with imposing-looking knots, and, as imposingly, worked himself free. All these did their little turn and moved on to another performance elsewhere, and each one, before leaving, made a tour of the line, thrusting limp but importunate headgear into the meagre interstices of the queue, and saying, thank you," as encouragement to the bountiful. By way of punctuation to the programme, there had been vendors of sweetmeats, vendors of matches, vendors of toys, vendors even of picture postcards, and the crowd had parted good-naturedly with their pence and found amusement sufficient to their needs. Now a shudder ran down the line, a shudder that the experienced recognized as but one thing. Stools were given up or folded into handbags, food disappeared, purses appeared. The doors were open. The lovely, exciting gamble had begun. Was it to be win, place, or lose by the time they came to the wicket? Up in the front of the queue, where the order was less mathematically 2 and 2 than down in the open, the excitement of the door opening had for a moment or two overcome the habitual place-keeping instincts of the Englishman. I say Englishman advisedly. The Scot has none of it. And there had been a mild pushing and readjustment before the queue had become immobile in a wedged and short-breathing mass before the guichet, which was immediately inside the pit door. The clink and rattle of coin on brass proclaimed the continual hurried transactions which made the lucky ones free of paradise. The very sound of it made those behind strain forward unconsciously until the crowd in front protested as audibly as their crushed lungs permitted, and a policeman went down the queue to remonstrate. Now then, stand back a bit. There's plenty of time. You won't get in."